All right, now I want to talk about the bliss stage of my spiritual awakening. This is the fun part. When I got into the bliss stage, I can actually tell you the day. I remember the day that I went through the bliss stage. I was, kind of like in a funk, kind of sad, kind of down, kind of in a contraction where nothing was going on, nothing was moving. I didn't know whether I was in a spiritual awakening or not. I wanted to believe, but then something was telling me that I wasn't. And I was listening to something like a video. It was like a pastor talk about a video, and then something about calling out to God caught my eye. I don't know what it was. It just was like I was walking around work with my earphones on, and he was like, start calling out to God for help, and it just poof. It was like it just stuck in me. It was like call out to God, call out to God, call out to God. So I was like, okay. So I ran home and I got my Bible, and then I started to just read random scriptures, and then I started to Google the scriptures, and then it started to make more sense. Now my awakening started to make more sense to me, and I was so like, you be like, your energy level just skyrocket. It was like I had all this light of God inside of me. I just wanted to be on every corner preaching with a microphone, telling people I found Jesus and I found God and this is the way. And when you're in the bliss stage, you just want everybody to know what you're going through, because now you actually believe it, and now you actually see the path ahead of you, and you're out of the dark night, and you're not feeling so weighed down. I know a lot of things online say that you go through the bliss stage before the dark night. I know for me, I went through the dark night into the bliss. My bliss stage lasts for 2.5 months. I can tell you down to the T, because I remember when I woke up and I didn't feel blissful anymore. But my bliss stage lasted maybe 2.5 months, and I just wanted to shout from the rooftops. So if you remember, in my phase of the dark night, I wasn't talking to anybody. I didn't want to communicate with nobody. I didn't want to talk to my friends, not because they were not trying to help me, but I just didn't want nobody to judge me, and I didn't even know what was going on with my own self. I just was in a deep, dark place, and I didn't want to burden anybody, and I just felt like I was better off with just navigating this through myself. So now I'm in a bliss stage. I'm calling everybody. I want to talk to everybody, because I want to tell you about God, honey. I want to tell you about what God did to me. I want to tell you how I made it through this dark night process. I want to tell you how I'm on this spiritual journey. And still people was like, huh? Like, are you going through a manic phase? And that's the bliss stage felt like. It felt like I was going through a manic stage. It was like something will wake me up 1 o'clock in the morning to pray. I had to pray. 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. It was like all this energy. It was like I drank 3 Red Bulls every single day for 2 months. I had to listen to a video. I had to listen to a podcast. I had to have earphones in my ear the whole 8 hours at work, because I was finding so much spiritual insight that it just was waking me up. It was like tingling in my soul when I hear words like integration and unionness. It was like all these things that I've learned in the beginning is finally starting to make sense, and I want somebody to hear me. And it was like heaven on earth. It was just like boom, a big burst of energy. I walked around and I read every spiritual book that I had. I was on Amazon buying spiritual books before I finished the last one. I read Becoming Supernatural. I read The Power of Now. I read Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. I was reading The Surrender Experiment by David Singer. I was reading so many books. I'm not lying. I had 3 books here, a journal here. This is all on my bed. 3 books on the side of the bed, a journal right here, and 2 Bibles on my bed. Why I got 2 Bibles? Why? What in the world am I going to read out of 2 different Bibles? That's just how open my spirit was to learning. And I had to journal this experience down because I couldn't believe it. And I didn't even realize what was going on. I just felt like I was obsessed with God. Put it like that. It was just a phase where I was obsessed with God. I didn't know what the bliss phase was. I didn't start looking up the bliss stage until after this stage. So I just was like, oh, this is what healing feels like. I made it to the top of the mountain. I am fully healed. I am redeemed. Now I can heal other people. After 2.5 months of having all that bliss and all that prayer and all that journaling, I literally hit like a plateau where I just remember waking up in my bed and it was like, I got to pray today. But then I was like, I don't feel like it. I was like, I got to journal today. And I was like, I don't feel like it. And then like the second day, the third day, and you know what, it was like a week later, and I was like, wow, I haven't even picked up the Bible. I haven't picked up a pen to write. I haven't picked up a book. And I was like, I don't feel the same that I used to when I was in this phase. I feel down. I felt like I overworked my battery. Like my cell phone was on 100% and now I'm at 2. I ain't understand it. That's when I started to look up obsessed with God. That's what I actually typed in, obsessed with God, because that's how the bliss stage felt to me. Like I was obsessed with learning about God, learning about Jesus, learning about awakening. It just was like the food that kept me going. It fueled my soul. And then that's when it came to me. It was like the bliss stage. So I was like, well, I'm not in it no more. Why would you give me this stage to take me out of it? Then I realized I was in the void. Oh my God, the void. Once I came out of the bliss stage, I immediately went into the void where it was like everything stopped. It was like my whole spiritual awakening stopped. So I didn't understand the void. I only wanted to go back to the bliss stage. Now this where the addictions kind of kicked in at, I ain't gonna say addiction, but I started smoking marijuana because I wanted that high of the bliss stage. I wanted to be basically in the clouds. I wanted to go back up there with God. I wanted to meet Jesus again. I wanted to be up here. But I was down here and I was like, nope, something's going to get me up. I'm going to take this gummy. I'm going to take this ashwagandha. I'm going to take this weed. I'm going to find this stage again. And then it was like, I would go up and go right back down. I would go up and go right back down. And I was like, hold up. Am I ever going to find this stage again? Is you going to ever come back to me? Like, what happened? And then that's when I started to read about the bliss stage. And that's when they tell you that the bliss stage only comes temporarily because my nervous system, my soul was not big enough to hold all the light of the Creator. It was not big enough to hold all the light that God was giving me. So it gave me a temporary glance at what a true spiritual awakening felt like once you get to a certain stage. And I wanted that back, and I still want that back. But I know to get to that stage, you actually have to go through the other stages and, you know, get your nervous system ready to get from the bliss stage to the void stage. And I'll tell you about the void stage in another video.